Hello, I'm Brittany Carroll, and my presentation for my staff is Keeping Mathematically Gifted Students Challenged. I chose this topic for a number of reasons. One, I really enjoy teaching math and challenging my students and making sure that they have the enrichment that they need to be challenged. Also, this is a unique situation because in our school we only have a gifted support teacher there 2 days out of the week, and she then services all of our school K through 5. So the time with her is very limited. However, when she is there, she is amazing at challenging the students, but also providing opportunities for the classroom teachers to continue to challenge those students when she's not there. She's also wonderful about helping teachers challenge students who are not, titled gifted, but need the acceleration. So I do have a lot of support from her, but at the same time, there's a lot of time that it's solely my responsibility to make sure these kids are continually challenged. So, according to some research I found, too frequently teachers following the required curriculum barely touch on many math concepts, failing to recognize and nurture young mathematicians. I can definitely see how this plays a role because if I just followed the curriculum that I was supposed to teach, I would not be challenging those learners because they already know a lot of that and they need the extension onto those ideas, not just the bare bones. Formal instruction in elementary school classrooms often lacks challenge for the gifted learner since courses in regular ed classrooms sometimes have a relatively narrow range of topics, minimal investigation of concepts, repeated drill and practice, and yearly repetition. As we have been reading in our book, those are things that we're trying to avoid, the repeated drill and minimal investigations. So this isn't the first time this is coming to my attention. So it's something that needs to be addressed in the classroom. Students gifted in mathematical thinking and problem solving need greater depth and breadth of topics and open-ended opportunities for solving more complex problems. Again, talking about that higher content in our book, providing the more complex problems. So I read a few articles and gathered strategies from those articles. So that's what the next few slides are going to be, are some strategies that we can be implementing into our classroom. So the first research showed some strategies being enrichment experiences, differentiation of instruction, including pre-testing and compacting the curriculum, flexible cluster grouping by topic or mathematic achievement, grade skipping in math, mentoring, and increased use of technology. Again, these are all options. I think some of them need to be monitored a little bit more closely, and obviously some are a lot easier to implement, such as your enrichment compared to grade skipping. Our next researcher found some strategies being posing open-ended questions that require higher level thinking, modeling thinking strategies such as decision making and evaluation, accepting ideas and suggestions from students and expanding on them, facilitating original and independent problems and solutions, helping students identify rules, principles, and relationships, and taking time to explain the nature of errors. Goes hand in hand there with the growth mindset that it's okay to be making those errors and we are going to fail in order to succeed. So especially with our gifted kids, they constantly hear they're gifted, they're being accelerated, and then they sort of build that fear of failing or taking risks because they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. So I think it's definitely important that we take that time to explain errors are going to occur and it's okay. And as we know, if we make a mistake, that's your brain growing. So explaining that to all children, especially our gifted students. The next research here was very simple on their strategies. This came from Classroom Caboodle, and I thought this was sort of a simplistic way of looking at it. But she suggested using more challenging numbers. So depending on your grade level, but if you're asking, younger grades to just add 36 plus 42, substitute one of those numbers for 153. Or if you're finding the area of a shape that's 13 by 13, the student figured it out, have them, what if one side changed to 12 and a half and you're throwing in a decimal then for them to use. So just to up the rigor in the numbers. Another strategy she suggested is adding additional steps by combining standards. So at any grade level, this could be done. The more steps that they have to complete, the more challenging the problem would be. So you could just add in a few more by combining different standards. So anything that they've learned already this year or previous years, you can combine those ideas in with what you're teaching. Or introduce the next grade level standard. So you have to then know which, I mean, we should have an idea of what standards are before and ahead of the grades you're teaching. So having that general idea will be able to allow you then to introduce that skill for the student. She also mentioned that you could combine all of these strategies, and then always that final extension question allows the child to dig a little bit deeper and understand what they're learning as just saying, how do you know it's right? Show me, explain to me. So making them really think about what they did to get to their answer and explaining it. Because again, some of our accelerated students are really good at getting to the answer, but then when you try to get that communication as to how did you get there, that can be difficult for them. So always offering that question to get them thinking about what they did. So I think those are all good strategies, but just a few things to keep in mind. I think rather than choosing just one of those strategies over the other, research indicates that a combination of the strategies discussed in the previous slides makes for a stronger program. So not just always going with one of the strategies and sticking to it, but offering them, again, that choice that we read about in our text, using a variety of them. The increased complexity of problems should require higher order thinking skills and provide opportunities for open-ended responses. Effective differentiation of instruction is very different from the unfortunate practice of simply assigning 20 problems to the gifted child while the remainder of the class is given only 10. This is not really a best practice. I think we all know that. It's more of the same piled higher, which is not digging deeper or challenging that student. If they can get 10 done, they can easily do 20 of them. We need to be providing the open-ended, higher level thinking, inquiry type projects or enrichment opportunities for these students. So yeah, the more of the same piled higher is not appropriate, and it may lead children to conceal their abilities in order to avoid the extra unnecessary work. So these students may start shutting down because they don't want to do 20 problems instead of just the 10. So doing that is not actually getting this student to their full potential, which is what we should be aiming to do. It also mentioned that pretesting is important to avoid repetition from previous years, so this process provides the foundation for effective differentiation of instruction that each student should receive. So if you know that they already know majority of the chapter that is about to be taught, well, then you know you have to fall back onto these different strategies and figure out how you're going to continue to challenge the student throughout this chapter because they already know the foundation. So pretesting is still important for these students so you're able to figure out where they're falling. This was a quote that came across my one article, and I just found it very obvious but yet touching. Acknowledging that students learn at different speeds and that they differ widely in their ability to think abstractly or understand complex ideas is like acknowledging that students at any given age aren't all the same height. It's not a statement of worth but of reality. Some articles and books I suggest for fellow educators to read. These are two articles that I came across during my research, but the first one was Enrichment Curriculum, Essentials for Mathematically Gifted Students. This had a lot of good ideas, as well as I thought it was interesting they touched on the growth and fixed mindset. However, didn't really refer to the idea of that, but it was definitely talking about the same thing. And the other one that I thought was great was The Inclusive Classroom, Meeting the Needs of Gifted Students, Differentiating Mathematics and Science Instruction. They were both articles I was able to find the PDF for online and read. So as two of the articles that I read credited teachers and educators for already doing a nice job at challenging gifted students, there was a few quotes that stuck out to me that one, we always can use that extra "you're doing a good job" boost. So I thought some of these really did that, as well as just sort of put it all into perspective. Successful teachers of gifted learners adapt their teaching strategies to accommodate the students' unusual thinking strategies and methodologies. Teachers need to be confident in their own mathematical knowledge and teaching abilities in order to accept the divergent thinking abilities of their gifted students. Again, as we've been reading in our text, that if we're not confident in what we're teaching, students can definitely see that and begin to feel our insecurities. So it's crucial to be confident for all the students and everyone's student needs, because even with the gifted students, they can sense that. As is so often the case, teachers are the most reliable experts. They will need to try the strategies for themselves and use their own judgment in determining how well they work for students. I think a lot of times as educators, we doubt ourselves and we're always looking to make sure we're doing the right thing or how do we improve, when really if we step back and look, we're already doing a lot of the things that our students need to thrive. So sometimes we just need to give ourselves that credit so we can have the confidence boost, so that can go into our students' attitude and continue to make them more confident in what they're doing. And last is just the references I used it. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation.